All right, playoff picture. We discussed it a little, so we don't really have to harp on the AFC. But it's pretty much just the last spot, right? I think the Chargers, it's race to 10 wins, right? Once the Chargers or the Broncos get to 10 wins, that's it. They're in. Neither the Colts, neither the Bengals, neither the Dolphins at this point can get to 10 wins. So it's just win another game. For the Chargers, that should be pretty easy. I said Pats and Raiders earlier on for someone else's schedule. That's actually the Chargers schedule going forward. So odds are they're winning one. Now, it's the Broncos that have the difficult run. They got the Bengals, but they could luck out if the Chiefs beat the Steelers on Christmas Day, and they could get the Chiefs backups, or just not the Chiefs' best effort in Week 18.
Correct.
In Denver. So that might be the saving grace for them. But playing against the Bengals next week, not an easy task given the way they're playing right now, given the fact that Joe Burrow's gone that way he has. So do we think there's any do we think anyone sneaks in?
I mean, like we were talking about it earlier. Again, I didn't know that the Bengals were third in that pecking order. And this is what happens when you lose a lot of close games that you're not supposed to, because your defense can't stop anybody. Yeah, the Patriots in week 1 is probably coming back to bite them. I think the Colts got an outside chance, man. We were talking about it, like this Denver team, and I actually just had our research team do something for me. I asked them to pull the numbers for, and I'm gonna pull this up for you. Pull the numbers for Bo Nix when his team is either tied or behind. You know what his numbers are in those scenarios?
I bet they're not good. He's a front runner.
11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Ooh.
So
that's impressive.
That gives me pause.
Yeah.
That gives me pause going down the stretch, because we saw it come to a head against the Chargers. They were up big in that game, and Justin Herbert walked them down, and Bo Nix couldn't pull them out of the funk, right? That's when your quarterback has to elevate you, and I don't think right now in his current state he can elevate his team. Like, I think Sean Payton's done a masterful job understanding his skill set and getting him some easy throws. And, Marvin Mims has been kind of like their screen guy. He's done really well. Courtney Sutton has kind of found a resurgence. But when they really need Bo Nix to put it on him and to put it on his arm, I don't think he can do it for the Denver Broncos right now. And, when the Denver Broncos aren't playing championship-type defense, can they win games? And we saw that versus Chargers. They can't. So it's just like – and even going back the week before, Bo Nix didn't play well versus the Colts. Literally, the Denver defense and special teams won them that game. It wasn't Bo Nix. So I think the Colts might have an outside chance just because, again, the Giants and the Titans, I think that's who they got to play left on their schedule.
Giants and Jags. It's even worse than that.
Giants and Jags. It's even worse. You're right. Giants and Jags. Yeah, because you know what's crazy? The Titans almost had a crazy comeback today.
Yeah.
It almost came back and beat the Colts. But I think Denver could lose out, just depending on what – I have them losing next week versus the Bengals, right? Because I don't know if they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow in that offense. But that next week is the question, right? If Kansas City takes care of business Saturday, they have an opportunity to rest everybody week 18. Depending on what they do, the Denver Broncos could be in trouble, which is crazy because they were at 9-5 at one time.
Yeah. The only thing is, I feel like, not to hate on the Colts too much, but they would be the least exciting team to get in of the teams.
They would for sure.
We're like, who's most fun to watch? It's just not been the Colts this year. It just has not, unfortunately. They have some like insanely talented players, but unfortunately play a semi-boring brand of football. But yeah, I do think the Broncos find a way to sneak one out, whether it's at the Bengals, who, as much as it's hard to stop Joe Burrow, it's very easy to score in that defense.
Correct.
Or if it's the week 18 and the Chiefs just don't play their starter. So I still think we do see status quo come playoff time. But yeah, I think the Colts will win out. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose to it was the Jags or
the Giants, right?
Or the Giants. Yeah, they're definitely not losing Giants.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the NFC, where one seed looks like it's going to come from the North at this point, and it looks like it's going to come from whoever wins that Week 18 matchup between the Vikings and Lions. Vikings have the Packers at home this next week. The Lions have the 49ers on the road this next week on Monday Night Football, and then Sunday night, obviously, is going to be that Vikings-Lions game. Wild card, not necessarily interesting. It's pretty much decided. 10 wins with Commanders.
I'll say the Commanders Atlanta game is real interesting this week.
They just need to win one more, right? They win one more.
But I think, don't they? So who do they have? Do they have the Cowboys the last week?
And they have the Cowboys the last week. Yeah.
They lost to them already. That's what I'm saying. This could be interesting.
It was huge for them to win that game, though. Obviously this week.
So now it's going to be in Dallas.
Yeah. So that's their schedule going forward. The divisions that are still up for grabs, obviously, Bucks, Falcons, Rams, Seahawks. Rams have the 1-game lead. Bucks have the 1-game, or I guess half game lead because they haven't played yet. They're playing right now. Do we see any movement here in this conference from the teams that are currently in, which would be Rams, Bucks, Lions, Vikings, Packers, Eagles, Commanders? Do we see any movement from that?
Well, I know right now Detroit's thanking the Commanders, right? Because they're a game up on the Philadelphia Eagles now. I know for a fact that you never want to go for anybody in your division, but the Lions are the biggest Packers fans this week. They're monumental Packer fans this week because it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So because the Vikings already beat the Packers, right? So if the Packers beat them, do the Lions own the tiebreaker no matter what? Even though they've already beat the Vikings and beat the Packers twice, the following week, like would it matter for the Lions in regards to the number 1 seed? Then
would not matter if the Packers beat the Vikings and the Lions win week 17 over the 49ers. That's it. They get
So they're the biggest cheeseheads this week. And you know what's crazy, Mike? They get to sit back and no, they don't, because the Seahawks played Chicago on Thursday. So no, they have to wait. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what time those games are. Usually when you travel to the West Coast, it's at least a 4:00 game. So I wonder if that Vikings game, if it's not Sunday night, I would assume it's maybe probably 4:00 window too.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. That way they're playing at the same time. They can't look over there and know. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I guarantee. I mean, obviously the Lions have to take care of their business, which after watching the 49ers today, I don't think will be much of an issue.
Defeated team. That's a defeated team.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So like again, the Lions, and that was another thing we didn't talk about. Like people were so nervous about the Lions. And you know me, Mike, we talked about this Monday. I was like, I don't know how many teams can go toe-to-toe with them offensively, even with David Montgomery not being in the game. Right? They just run at a different level on offense. And Ben Johnson is so creative that, yes, you worried about them potentially stopping people on defense. And, you know, there was this whole aura about Jared Goff not being able to play outside in inclement weather, which he's done twice this year and looked masterful doing it, right? The Green Bay game, you know, was a downpour and it was cold. He carved them up in that game. And he just carved up the Chicago Bears, which, again, is not saying much because the Bears have really struggled the last couple of weeks. But it's something to be said when people have kind of painted you as a guy that can only play in 70-degree weather or in the dome. And I think Jared Goff has kind of quelled that notion that he can't play in inclement weather because you're going to have to in the playoffs. Now, they won't have to, right? If they get the number 1 seed, they get to play at home every game. But I love what I saw from the Lions, right? 2 early turnovers. You get a Roma Dunze. They punched the ball away from him, and then DeAndre Swift as well punched the ball away from him. And they've literally pieced this defense together, and yet Aaron Glenn is still getting the best out of this defense. And like I said, this offense is almost impossible to stop, especially when Jameson Williams is playing like that. Like, they're going to be tough to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think we see any change in the playoff order or just in the playoff teams. And I think that the Lions do end up getting the 1 seed because I believe in my Packers to upset.
What do you think about that Week 18 game, Rams and Seahawks? If we get the Geno that we saw today, right, minus DK playing backyard football, that can be an interesting game because, yes, I love what I saw from the Rams versus the Bills. And we saw the New England Patriots carve up that Bills defense too. So they got a real issue on that side of the football. But the Rams have that same issue on defense as well. Their defense really isn't that good. Now, they'll make some plays here and there, but they got a lot of young guys up front and in the secondary. I do like their safety tandem with Lake and Curl, but at corner, Killer Witherspoon can be hit or miss. He had a big game today versus the Jets, and then Williams as well can be hit or miss at corner as well. So Geno can throw with the best of them. I think that's going to be an interesting game.
Here's the problem, though. I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, the Rams win next week, they win the division. It's over.
No matter what, because they lost today.
because of unfortunately. Because it would also be the Rams.
But they have the
beating a
Cardinals in
divisional opponent,
Arizona,
the
though.
Cardinals. Yeah, it's in LA, Week 17. Rams, Cardinals. But the thing is, the Cardinals they themselves got out of it this week, so they may not be up for it the way they would be if they had won that game. So unfortunately for the Seahawks, I think they wrote their ticket to the Bahamas here. Unfortunately,
that's why it was my my extra point, right? Lost opportunities.
Yep. All right, draft order, the real interesting combo here, because the Las Vegas Raiders.
What are the Raiders thinking? What are they thinking?
They're gone. They can't get back. They cannot get back to the top two, unfortunately, with their win today. The order right now is the New York Giants 1, Patriots 2, Jaguars 3, Titans 4, Browns 5, Raiders 6, Panthers 7, Jets 8, Bears 9, New Orleans Saints 10. And they can't get up there because they played too strong a schedule. Their strength schedule is too high. They play too many good teams. And the tiebreaker, when you have all the same record, because now there's 5 teams at 3-12. There's not the 4 teams besides them aren't going to win all win games this year. I guarantee one of the Patriots, Jaguars, Titans, Browns, or Raiders, or Brown, the not Raiders, will lose their next 2 games. At that point, you're not getting the top 2 because your record's too good, because they have far and away the highest strength of schedule of those teams. So that's it. The quarterback class that we've talked about, that's too deep. One's going to be a Giant. One's going to be, I don't know, maybe the saving grace.
Probably a Titan.
The Patriots and Jags will not be drafting quarterbacks. But if the Titans and Browns are there, chances are
they're taking one of those guys. So that was my thing. What if the Titans and Cleveland win a game, right? But I think they're technically still behind them, right? Because of strength of schedule. Oh, no.
So they're all 3-12.
Yeah.
So if they win, they jump them. But I don't see all 4 of those teams winning, which is what's going to happen for the Raiders to get back to number 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like to your point. They don't need to get back to number 2 as long as New England or Jacksonville don't trade out, right?
Correct.
Because they're not going to take quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. New England's probably stay there and they'll take Travis Hunter. You would think Jacksonville, maybe Mason Graham, unless they get a package that they feel, that's worthy for them to move back. And then maybe even the Raiders call them to try to trade up. So my thing is they got to try to find a way to get back in front, which is terrible to say, not back in front, but get behind, but in front of the draft order when it comes to the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns. But I tweeted that while the game was going. I was like, I love it. Like, as a player, I don't believe in tanking at all. Mm-hmm. But what the Raiders are doing isn't helping them, is what I tweeted.
But they're not going to look back
by any means
and fondly remember their Week 16 over the Jaguars. And
this was a defining win for us. Like, again, as a player, you play to win the game. I 100% get it, right? You never just lay it down on the line. But this was a scenario that I remember, I think it got Lovie Smith fired, but it actually ended up helping them, right? Because they wanted Bryce Young and they won that game. They ended up getting CJ Stroud.
Well, the Jets had that
I hope this
in 2020, right?
I hope, correct, right? It was the Sam Darnold year, right?
Well, they had that with what's his face? Who was the DC?
Oh, no, it was Trevor. Yeah, it was Trevor Lawrence. They beat the Rams on the road. And instead of being the number 1 pick, they ended up getting number 2, and that's when they got Zach Wilson the next year. You're right. You're right about
cover
that.
0 against Henry Ruggs.
Yep.
Oh my God! And now the Raiders, well, they're paying back their favors. So that's that. The two QB race.
Tough for the Raiders.
The Raiders may very well be out of it.